In 2003, Kevin Moore, club member and life member New Zealand Grape Growers Council, persuaded the club to become a co-sponsor of a scholarship. Kevin, what was the scholarship?
The scholarship is a student exchange between students studying viticulture at the School of Viticulture and Enology in Conigliano, Northern Italy, and students studying at the EIT here in Hawke's Bay.
And this scholarship fosters an ongoing link between these two wine institutes. The scholarship is named the Bragato Student Exchange Scholarship and recognises the historical connection between Conigliano and New Zealand, dating from 1895 when Romeo Bragato, an ex-student of the Royal School of Viticulture in Conigliano, visited New Zealand. Bragato went on to become New Zealand government viticulturalist from 1902 to 1909. He recognised the potential for a New Zealand wine industry and identified many grape growing areas. He made international award-winning wines, held field days for growers, lectured widely and published booklets on viticultural and winemaking practices. To learn more about Romeo Bragato and the Exchange Scholarship, now invoked in his name, we will talk to Kevin Moore. Kevin, how did it start? How did it come about that a student exchange scheme was set up between the EIT and Conigliano?
In 1995, I initiated an annual conference called the Romeo Bragato Conference, and a wine awards also in his name. As a result of that, during a visit by some Italian viticulturalists in 1999, I was asked to speak to them, and I discovered amongst the group two who had also studied at Conigliano. They had no idea what had happened to Bragato. They had no idea that he'd come to New Zealand, that he'd been such the visionary he was. And so they went back to Italy and then invited me to go and speak to the school in Conigliano in 2001.
Wonderful experience.
So I did that.
Wonderful experience.
Went over there and spoke at their 125th Jubilee, and came back and thought we shouldn't let this connection die. So I spoke with the people here at the EIT and with my contacts at the school that I'd made, and so in 2003 this scholarship began.
That's a wonderful experience in Conigliano to be at that meeting.
It was quite
starting point.
Yeah, it was quite awe-inspiring. Their lecture theatre over there has to be seen. The walls and ceiling are all covered in beautiful frescoes, and they do it with a lot of panache and style and quite a bit of formality.
Kevin, this is a wonderful scheme. How is it funded, and what is the role of our Rotary Club in the scheme?
Okay, the major funding comes from the two schools. They each put in probably about 80% of the funding. But in addition to that, it's a joint scheme between our Rotary Club here in Taradale and the Rotary Club of Conigliano. They both also add money into it. And then there's some other sponsors as well, including Hawke's Bay winemakers, New Zealand wine growers, and it costs us about $8,000 a year each side to run the scheme.
So Kevin, who was the first student that we hosted here in Hawke's Bay?
The first student to come to New Zealand was Andrea Maiotto from a very small village called Colbertaldo, not far from Conigliano. He was here in 2003 and had a wonderful time, toured the whole country, saw a lot of new ideas and went back home, and now he's putting them into practice in his own little winery. Interestingly, Andrea came back in 2008 as a winemaker and did a vintage here at Links Road Winery. He brought his fiancée out for us to meet him. A cousin of his who's also a winemaker joined him. Also, when Andrea was here doing his vintage at Links Road, he teamed up with our 2008 current student Desiree Jansen, and you may recall that these two came and did a joint presentation to our club.
The next day I went to Conigliano, to the school, where I met Giovanni Moriani, who arranges the exchange from the Italian end. I also met Andrea, and some more pictures of the school. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a picture from the front. I'm sure I must have taken one, but that was the school from the back. The winery, which was fantastic, but also I could appreciate that we're quite lucky here at EIT because we, as students, are allowed to go into our winery and make wine, whereas this winery is actually not so much for the students, but as a research facility for the school.
Desiree, as a student at EIT, given the chance to go to Italy, what was your initial reaction?
My initial reaction, I think I went into a state of shock when I got the phone call a little bit, but excitement. Very excited to go and looking forward to seeing a country which was historically involved in winemaking.
I understand when you were there you were fortunate enough to get to some of the old ancient estates like Antinori that have been there since the 13th century. Did that blow your mind?
It did blow my mind. Visiting the monastery of Badia de Pasignano, and monastery which was initially built back in 800, and standing in a part of a castle that was that old was amazing.
Well, I have a very small presentation, of course. It's not as good as Desiree's one, but it's will be just more a few words about what happened to me after the experience here in New Zealand 5 years ago. When I came here, I was really maybe not prepared for what I was going to meet, what I was going to find here. I didn't actually know at the time that New Zealand was a wine country. You know, when I said to my friend, I'm going to New Zealand to visit the wineries, the vineyards, and they said, don't they have only rugby fields and sheep and whatever? They also make wine, they don't only play rugby. It's been so impressive for me to find such a great wine industry, prepared, professional, and I was trying to learn every day more because of the short story, because the New Zealand wine is a short story, but is always improving and trying new technology and new winemaking styles and whatever, and it's been really great for me. Kevin Moore, I stayed with Kevin and Corinne for a week, and I visited the EIT, which is a school that, of course, has the exchange with the Corneliano school. And I've been visiting a lot of wineries and vineyards and meeting people, creating contacts. And I came back home, and of course I had to finish my study. I finished my 6th year at the school. This is the picture of the front of the school. So, front and back. Yeah, the winery, and yeah, I had working overseas, working in New Zealand, and yeah. Oh yeah, another thing is that during these 5 years, I've been also involved in the Bragato student exchange. I've been meeting all the students that came from New Zealand to Italy, Grant, Hayden, Renee, Desiree this year, and it's been great just meeting other students, sharing information, knowledge, and just traveling around together, talking together. It's been kind of like making new friends out of home, and it's been great. Been learning a lot from them. And of course, the first person I want to thank is the father of this exchange, Kevin, who made it all possible, worked for that, and very good as a student, coming here, visiting, making contacts.
Andrea, welcome back after 5 years. What's it like?
Yeah, well, thank you, and it's great being here again. It's something that I really wanted after I came back from New Zealand my first time, and here I am, back again not for visiting, but just for working, and it's maybe better. It's great.
Okay, the fact that you guys just grow Prosecco would mean that what you've seen in New Zealand is quite different. Do you see advantages to yourself out of learning about how we grow Sauvignon Blanc or the Reds Cabernet Sauvignon? What's the benefit to Andrea Marta of coming to New Zealand and seeing that?
Well, today at home I grow Prosecco, and I actually have a small winery and vineyard, and I grow only that variety, and I make only that kind of wine. But that's what happens today, and I don't really know what can happen in 10, 15, 20 years time. So now I have the opportunity to learn something more about something different, and I can be prepared for whatever, and that's absolutely great. And of course, if I don't do it now, I will never do that in 15 years time. You were lucky enough, I think, to have a cousin visit you over the last few days.
who decided to come to New Zealand as well, which wouldn't have happened without this exchange. What did Marco think?
He had the opportunity to visit wineries, of course, but not only that, being in contact with people, different culture, and of course he's been impressed from the diversity of New Zealand wines and from the New Zealand people, and yeah, I think he really enjoyed it, and probably, who knows, maybe he would like to come back.
And that really sums it up, really. This is what this exchange is all about. We're not trying to teach these young students how to make wine. They learn that at school. What we're here to is to expand their horizon, expand their experience, to give them a lifetime opportunity that otherwise wouldn't come their way.
Big question for you, Kevin. Give us a brief outline of the students who have both visited New Zealand and been to northern Italy.
Well, we've had 7 from Italy now. We're in regular contact. These kids from the Italian end have created a little group on Facebook. They talk to each other almost daily. They keep in touch with what each other are doing. Most of the Italians have now graduated, of course, and are working in their family wineries. That's Andrea, of course, and then Alberto, who was here in 2004, and Breno. But some of them, the last 3, of course, Enrico, Chiara, are still at university. Some of them are at Padua University, some at Undine. The really exciting thing for me is to see our New Zealand students all around the world.
Wonderful.
They have done vintages in Australia, North America, and currently we have Renee Dale from 2006 back in Napa Valley for the 2nd year.
So they're setting their mark.
They're setting their mark. The world. And Hayden Penny, our first student, 2004. He's worked here in Hawke's Bay for Te Awa, worked for Villa Maria in Marlborough. He's spent 2 vintages in Australia, 1 in North America, and he's currently head winemaker at a winery in Bulgaria.
What stands out?
I have to mention Grant Roberts. Grant was our very first student that we sent. Grant came back. He bought a old place called Silverfoot in the Dartmoor Valley. He's planted a very small vineyard, and he learned a new idea whilst he was in Italy, and he's applied that to the making of a beautiful red wine called the Grail, which has won a gold medal in its very first vintage.
If you like, if people have come across from Italy, that was Alex, Alexandro and Matt. Any comments about them? They were charming people.
Yeah, well, Alex Roper, of course, went last year to Italy, and Alex had been to Europe before, and so he was able to use that knowledge as well to come back. A very mature young man, knows exactly where he's going, and he's in his last year here now. Alessandro Zanaton, he's back home in his final year at the school in Corneliano, and Matt Fox is due to go. Matt's our selection for 2009. When he's finished his exams here at the end of this year, he will pack his bags and he will arrive in Venice about the 9th of January for his study tour.
Right, Alexandro, you've been in New Zealand now for a month. You would have been here for a month. In that time, would you have noticed differences in our culture? What have you learned?
I learned a lot of things. I learned the style of grafting, the style of pruning, and another culture. I visit a lot of places, Auckland, Gisborne and Hawke's Bay. I visit the sea, the mountain, and I tasted a lot of wine. Wonderful wine.
You've had a wonderful time, I think.
Yes.
It's nice to have you with us too. Now, Matt, we've just spoken to Alessandro, and he's had a good time here. Now, you are a returning Bragato scholar, aren't you?
Yeah, I came back from Italy in February. I was there for a month.
Tell us briefly about it. You were there for a month. Did you travel much throughout the country?
Yeah, all around, as far south as Tuscany. So
right.
Basically based around the north of Italy.
Expand.
So I went into, started off in Veneto, the region of Venice,
right.
And I went up north to Friuli, and went to Piemonte and to Marche, which is on the coast.
I just love the way that these names just drip off your tongue.
Yeah, you picked up a bit of Italian while I was over there.
Isn't it?
Yeah, Toscana, Piemonte.
Well done, well done. So, did you notice a major change in culture or a different way of doing things in the wine industry?
Yeah, a lot of winemakers are very old school, very old world producers, but the technology is definitely there in force.
Hugely colourful though, isn't it, with the old vats and casks and
Yeah, it's amazing.
lifestyles completely.
Yeah,
You've come back a better person for it?
Yeah, I've learned a great deal, and a lot of ideas in my head about making wine in the future in New Zealand.
So now Matt's about to go. Is it a costly exercise?
The sponsorship is amazing. You're taken care of very well, and it's really hard to try and pay for anything. The hosts initially are so hospitable that...
Delighted to hear. What about friends?
Friends?
You made over there?
I've got some friends initially, and many contacts in wineries initially that I think I'll stay in touch with for
Was this your first big trip overseas?
No, in 2006 I lived in Europe for a year. So that kind of prepared me for the travelling on my own and catching trains in foreign languages.
Yes, it's quite a problem.
Yeah.
Well done. It's definitely going to be of value to you. It's going to build up your abilities in the trade you're going to go into, which is winemaking, I hope.
Yep.
And we look forward to seeing your own label one day.
Thank you very much.
Right, thank you. Matt, it's exciting, isn't it?
Oh, I'm really
You must be
looking
just
forward
on edge. So here, let me go.
Definitely.
Let me go. When is go date?
It should be mid-January to
Now,
mid-February.
Did you just decide I'm going, or did you have to go through some selection process for this?
I had to go through a selection process where it was a panel with a meeting of a Napier councillor, the school chairman and Kevin Moore.
Right.
And then it was based upon academic achievement and also personality and representation for the country.
Do you know where you're going to go? Is it going to be the same as it was for Alex?
Yeah, it's a very similar itinerary from what I've viewed so far.
Right, you better contact some of his friends possibly?
Yeah, definitely. And it'd be good to catch up with some of the previous Romeo Bragato
Very good.
scholar
People
exchange students.
You're the sixth one going or seventh one going? Or?
Sixth
one going.
Six New Zealand.
What program though do the students follow when they are on the exchange? This is a point of interest.
It's all organised between the two colleges. There is a memorandum of understanding as to what is required, and it is a study and a work experience. So they get to see all the different regions in New Zealand, and they get to see most of the region in the northern half of Italy. And they stay with families, and this is the key to the success, because they then get to just go with them during their normal daily operations. Our kids get to see barrel makers, which we don't have in New Zealand, and there's something they learn. They get to see the largest nursery in the world with over 2 million plants in the ground. It's just stunning. We're not trying to teach these kids how to grow grapes or make wine. They do that at their colleges.
Sure.
What we're giving them is the opportunity to expand their horizons and have their eyes open to another culture and how wine fits into that culture, because they're quite different. One of the requirements of the exchange is that the students give presentations. They give presentations at each college to the other students. They are required to do a program at the Rotary clubs, and the students all go to the Romeo Bragato conference in New Zealand. The incoming Italian students tour is timed, so that's the last weekend of their tour, and there they sit in on wine judging, which is a new experience for most of them, and they get a high accolade by recognition on the stage at the Wine Awards dinner.
So finally, Kevin, what do you see as the enduring benefits of this exchange scholarship?
There's a number from my seat. It's keeping a connection going that's now been going for 115, 120 years. It's making a very good connection between the two colleges. The CEO of the EIT went to Italy this year to go to Conigliano, and we hope to have Giovanni Mariani here next year in 2011. The reason for that is a rugby nut and the Rugby World Cup's on, so we'll make it this year. The students have created a network, the students have made ongoing contacts. We insist that they try and get every business card they can as they're going around, because you just don't know in 5 years or 10 years when that contact could be of value for them, expanding their horizons even further.